Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 312 and 313 for the 1st and 2nd of January 2023. And for those that haven't heard me say Happy New Year to you, Happy New Year. So, and this map here, this map, I think a lot of people seems to not know that this map was actually publicly available. You can actually go in and actually take a look at all these things in detail. However, as per I have announced over the Christmas that this map will go into behind the paywall, and I have already done it. And you can actually now get access to the map on the Patreon. You have to sign up for the DPA officer role in order to get the map. You can also go to Coffee, also same thing, DPA officer. Then I will manually give you the access to this map via your Google account email. So the funding that raised from this will help to grow and fund other projects in Defense Politics Asia. This war is not going to go on forever, and there's a lot of work go into doing the map. It takes around 4 to 5 hours per day. Usually it tends to be more like 5 hours a day, trying to map all these things. So it's a lot of effort, and truth to be told, most of you guys don't even need the map. You just watch these videos, right? So yeah, so I have to do something to help to fund the other things that is need investment, like hiring people eventually. So anyway, let's start off with a helicopter getting shot down over Ukraine. So the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported a Russian Ka-52 shot down over Ukraine. The specific location is not mentioned. Imagine the Russian Defense Ministry say this. All the pro-Ukrainians in the chat were like, where's the proof? They are always lying. Yeah. So moving on to the southern front, we have no information about anything around here. Over the Zaporizhia line, we have fighting along the line. It's not very heavy fighting, but it's still some fighting. There's a Russian raid north of Novoporovska, probably around here. They did a raid and at a Ukrainian observation post, and then the Ukrainians actually tried to counterattack at Novozyanka. So previously we have reported that the Russian forces have captured Novozyanka on the 31st of December, and the Ukrainians tried to counterattack. I think have not really worked out in how the Ukrainians wanted. There is also fighting reported at Novoandrievka, where Ukrainian recon forces tried to penetrate into the lines of the Russians around here. But interestingly is that we actually mapped Novoandrievka as under Ukrainian control. So as such, with this report coming from the Russian Defense Ministry, I have put this as a disputed zone, because I thought this was under Ukrainian. However, at Shebaki, according to Ryba, the pro-Russian source, they reported reinforcement has been sent to Shebaki by the Ukrainians. And previously we mapped this as under Russian control. So given this information, we have pushed the front line of the Russian ones down, so that Shebaki and Mali Shebaki is under Ukrainian control. It only makes sense that Mali Shebaki and Shebaki is together because they're just near to each other. If reinforcement is sent here, they have to pass through Mali Shebaki. So it's also only natural that Mali Shebaki is now under Ukrainian control as well. So which is why I have indicated as such, which also put into question whether Stepov is actually under Russian control. But anyway, we just leave it as this is for now. And over at the Velika Novosilka, at the very end of the Zaporizhia line, there is fighting reported at Nikoshne. This is also part of the same report reported by the Russian Defense Ministry about Ukrainian recon forces operating towards certain directions, and so the recon forces from the Ukrainian side kind of try to penetrate into the lines around Neshkushny. So there is some contact, so fighting are reported over that. So that's all from the Zaporizhia line. Over at the Donetsk front, for those that are lost already, this is Donetsk city, or Donetsk oblast or region. Over at the Donetsk region, we have a shelling report at Zolota Neva as well as at Preshestivka. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, most of the operations by the Russians seems to be mostly shelling, as you will see as we go along. So this might precede certain intention to go on an offensive, but of course Russians do shelling on a daily basis, so it might not mean anything. But this is specifically highlighted by the Russian Defense Ministry, which is why I map it on the map. Or else usually shelling reports, I don't really put it into the map because it tends to just clutter the map and it doesn't add anything, because most of the time the shelling is just nothing. The Ukrainians also recon forces try to penetrate towards Makiivka and also at Novo-Mikhailivka. At Marinka, we have continued fighting on the 1st and on the 2nd of January, reporting from War Gonzo and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Boyeda also saw fighting on the 1st on the New Year, reported by War Gonzo. There's fighting reported at Krasnohorivka according to War Gonzo yesterday, and now we are into the Pisky region. This is Pisky. Fighting is reported at Nevelske as well as at Pervomaiske. This region is largely forgotten nowadays by basically everyone except War Gonzo. War Gonzo continued to be reporting about Russian push around this region, but the push seems to be not pushing at all. I don't think the front line even moved at all, so it could be just skirmishes, which is also probably why it's totally ignored by like major sources like Ryba. Over at Avdiivka, there is fighting reported at Avdiivka on the 2nd of January, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. And the big news over the past 2 days is actually the missile strike at Makiivka. I did a video on this on the DPA main channel. So this is the DPA war channel. On the main channel, I did a report on specifically purely on Makiivka's missile strike or HIMARS strike with all this information. Just to add on to the information from in that report, Sanya, Florida, the YouTuber reporting the war in the neutral angle in Russian using DPS mapping. He mentioned that in his updated post, he said that his updated information from his source is that 307 people is missing because the bodies are totally disfigured and are totally into pieces, and they are unable to identify. 67 is identified and officially dead. So which means that according to his source and information, the total death toll is 374 people. This is from the total number of 500 people under his information. From his sources, his understanding is that there is 500 people. Ryba reported there is 600. Ryba reported 600. Where is it? 600. Ryba's information is 600. Sanya's information is 500. But Sanya's death toll is actually at 374. So yeah, so do go and watch that video. It goes a lot deeper about this. Over at Krasnohorivka, north of Avdiivka, we see fighting. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, are able to ascertain that this is the Krasnohorivka because of the way how they report. The towns are in sequence, so this likely to be the Krasnohorivka being mentioned. And that nothing else over at the New York front. The entire attack previously I've reported along the New York front does indeed seems like a diversionary attack. It doesn't seem to be anything. It's not like a sustained offensive. Over at the Bakhmut region, at the Bakhmut front, so we are now here. At the Bakhmut front, we see fighting at Ozeryanivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry and War Gonzo on the 1st and then on the 2nd. We have fighting being reported towards Dilievka, according to War Gonzo. Fighting is also reported near Kirdyomivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and we have fighting south of Klishchiivka. So Klishchiivka is this town here. is actually in the valley. Is flanked by two slopes, with the higher slope over at this part where the Ukrainians have a major entrenchment. You can see this entrenchment, this beautiful entrenchment. This is actually on the hilltop. So the fighting is reported on the south of Klishchiivka according to Syria maps on the 2nd of January. Klishchiivka itself sees fighting on the 1st and the 2nd. Probably the fighting is around this region where there's a forest around here, because this is open field with the exception of this road and this forest lines, which is kind of like a death trap. The fighting is most likely around this region here. Any push towards Ivanivske is actually not mentioned. Opine continue to see fighting on the 1st and the 2nd. The Ukrainians continue to hold this position to protect the southern flank of Bakhmut itself. We haven't heard of anything about the fighting south of Bakhmut, so we shall continue to wait. Maybe the Russians still do not have enough forces in this region here to make this push. There is a Ukrainian counteroffensive. Now we are at Bakhmut city itself. This is Bakhmut city. We have a Ukrainian counteroffensive or counterattack on the southeast of Bakhmut on the 2nd of January. Gonzo continued to report fighting on the eastern part of Bakhmut on both days, 1st and the 2nd, whereas the Ukrainian Defense Ministry does report Russian offensive at Bakhmut on these 2 days as well. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry continued to report fighting at Krasnohora and Pikhorodne. Although the information or this information is also on the 2nd. So the Ryba and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry both reported on the 2nd of January that Pikhorodne is under attack. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported the one at Krasnohora. No Russian sources really mentioned this. The way how the Russian sources mentioned about the fighting at Krasnohora was that they say in the south of Soledar, the Russians are pushing towards Krasnohora. So the front line might actually still be here along the Ukrainian front line here, the Ukrainian lines, the Ukrainian mapping of my mapping. So the front line might still be here on the south of Soledar, and the Russians are still trying to push towards here. This mapping is just a reference, which is why I say don't use my mapping in the way that it's not on a tactical level, it's more on a strategic level, where we can see more clearly the Russians are pushing towards Krasnohora. At Bakhmutske region, we have saw a report by Rusisch army reporting that the Ukrainians actually launched a small attack west of Bakhmutske, probably around here. Fighting is reported at Bakhmutske, pushing north towards Soledar yesterday by Ryba, and Soledar itself see fighting on both days, 1st and 2nd. Both are reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. The Russian forces from Yakovlivka is still pushing towards Soledar according to Ryba yesterday as well. The 1st of January, you can see that most of the information is actually from the reporting about 2nd of January. This is the reason is because 1st of January, most of the sources seems to be having holiday. There's not much information coming from the 1st of January, which is why all the information is actually on the 2nd of January. Which is also the reason why yesterday I didn't feel like I need to do a SITREP, because the information seems to be incomplete, which is why I don't report yesterday. At Rozdolivka, so now we at Siversk front. At the Siversk front, we see fighting reported towards Rozdolivka. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, the information on the 2nd of January is actually corroborated by Ryba, the pro-Russian source. At Vasily itself, the Russians are reportedly attacking Vasily on yesterday, according to the pro-Russian source. However, the pro-Russian source Ryba also mentioned that the Ukrainian forces have planted mine in the center of Vasily itself. So they have mined up the village, and so maybe they are going to retreat very, very soon. They are going to give up the position, because you don't mine the center of a village if you are going to hold it. So we might going to see the capture of Vasily in the next few days, I guess. Below Horivka, continue to see fighting despite the capture by the Russian forces on the 1st and the 2nd. It's reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 1st, and the 2nd of the January is reported by War Gonzo. That's all from this part. Moving all the way to the north, we have a shelling report on Serebryanka by the Russian Defense Ministry. The Bilohorivka in Luhansk continue to see attack by the Russian forces on the 1st and on the 2nd. Both is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. For the Siversk front, I just did analysis on the importance of Rodolivka on the entire Siversk front. So do check it out. It's on the DPA War channel, the video before this SITREP. I will put it in the link at the end of the video. Now we are at Kreminna front. At the Kreminna front, you can see that there is not much offensive being reported. It's actually only shelling report, as I mentioned earlier. Russian Defense Ministry reported shelling at Serebryansk Forestry, at Dimrova, as well as at Yampolivka. Interestingly, it was that Surya Maps reported that the Russian forces, together with the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republic forces, actually managed to push towards Toske, and they are now pretty much on the frontal, eastern outskirts of Toske. As they push through the road, they are now around here. So that's offensive. However, based on the intelligence, the information coming from pro-Russian sources, they are saying that the Ukrainians are now preparing for a major offensive against Kreminna. They are going to do a major attack on Kreminna. They are accumulating forces, which is also why we are seeing the Russians doing a lot of shelling around this region. So if the shelling is not effective, we are likely to see a major Kreminna offensive by the Ukrainian forces. The further up north of the Kreminna front, we have fighting reported at Makiivka. This is a different Makiivka from the one at Donetsk that suffered the HIMARS strike. And we have fighting reported at Ploshchanka on the 1st and on the 2nd, with the Russians trying to continue to push out of this village here towards the west. The Ukrainians are putting up a very good defense around this region. And over at the Svetove front, this is Svetove city. There's fighting reported at Makiivka as usual. These are both reports are by Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 1st and on the 2nd. The Russians are doing an offensive over there. The Russians themselves only reported shelling on the 1st of January. The shelling also includes at Andriivka, south of Makiivka, and as well as at Berestove, further up north. However, this report is on the reported on the 2nd of January. The Russian Defense Ministry also mentioned that they neutralized some units of the Ukrainian forces at Novoselivsk. It's unclear how do they neutralize. Do they put I also not sure if the Ukrainian forces is actually alkaline or is it acidic. So depend on what they put, they may become salt, and then you will become salty. So but I put it as an attack because of the way how they use the language, because usually they would just say artillery strike or air strike. So when they just say neutralize, I believe that there might be some limited ground offensive, but nothing very big or major. So now Novoselivsk is based. Over at the Kupyansk region, we see fighting the same information at Kotyarivka, as well as at Ivanivka. Same thing as the one at Novoselivsk, where there is this neutralization of the acid or the alkaline over at that region. There is a shelling report at Kaislivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. We see the same fighting or neutralization reported at Peshot-Shrafneve, near this region here. The exact front line is very unclear around this region, and we have shelling report at Sinkivka on the 2nd of January. And that's all for the summary or SITREP, or the situation report, or the situation in Ukraine war, or in Ukraine, for the day of 312 and 313 of this conflict on the 1st and 2nd of January. And so do press the like button. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed. And for those that are interested in the to see the map itself, do check out the links below to Patreon or Coffee to become a DPA officer. And I'll see you in the next update.